Today, we're diving into one of those Washington, D.C. exchanges that perfectly sums up everything broken about our political conversations.
The gentleman's time has expired. Now recognize the gentlewoman from Minnesota, Ms. Omar, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for to my colleague for the shout out to the Progressive Caucus for putting out a budget. I wanted to ask, how much has the national debt increased under Trump's tenure so far?
Right now, debt as a percentage of GDP is roughly where it was when President Trump came into office as it pertains to fiscal year 20,
Can you
right
just
around
say
8%.
how much?
Right now, the national debt is $23 trillion. It's too high. That's why we have a budget here to be able to tackle it by $4.6 trillion in deficit reduction over 10 years.
All right. So it's increased $3 trillion. And your deficit in 2020 alone will be more than 60% higher than the year Trump took office. Massive tax cuts for the rich, aggressive military spending, and excessive immigration enforcement have all impartially contributed to these high deficits. And with revenue as share of the economy at historic lows and income inequality at historic highs, I fail to see how you can realistically balance the budget under your current policies. But you're still expecting that high income growth will help pay for these wasteful spending policies. When was the last time that the annual GDP has hit your projected growth rate of 3% or higher per year?
Yeah, in our first year, we were way over our economic growth number when the actuals came in at 2%, and we were significantly underneath that. So we have been out of the last 3 years, which has been closer to our mark than CBO's 2 out of the last 3 years. But I would say we are trying to actually reduce wasteful spending in this budget. We don't think of tax relief for American families as wasteful spending. We think it's their own hard-earned money that we're returning to them so they can invest in their families, their communities, and the individuals in their households.
Yeah, well, we differ in that. It was never during this presidency. Your growth projection is about double the CPO expected during that same time period. However, we know that this administration is not afraid to cut important programs that millions of Americans rely on every single day to try to fix Trump's policy failures. And yet, it was only 4 days ago that the president stated that he will not be cutting Social Security or Medicaid in the fiscal 21 budget. So I'm glad we're now getting an opportunity to make sure we have this administration on record for its false promises to the American people. My colleagues on the other side and this administration will lecture us on the academic principles of fiscal responsibility and austerity by limiting deficit spending, unless it means cutting tax cuts for the rich. OMP projects that the federal deficit will top $1 trillion this year, and CPO sees $1 trillion deficit continuing every year thereafter under your current policies. Trump ran on this promise, this impossible promise, to eliminate all U.S. debt after 8 years in office. But your own projections show that he will not even manage to come close to eliminating a budget deficit until 2035. Republicans will shift our focus to high deficits and raising national debt that they are causing, not only to then push for deep cuts in vital programs for millions of working families, but also to distract us from the even bigger number, $35 trillion. I know that you talk about tax cuts as putting money back into people's pockets, but I know that most Americans see how their neighbors and everyday citizens are struggling under these cruel cuts that you're making to programs that are desperately needed by most Americans. Thank you, and I yield back.
Gentlewoman's time has expired. I now recognize the gentleman from California, Mr. Panetta, for...
We're going back to 2021. Yeah, the days of heated committee rooms, masks half on, half off, and rhetorical flamethrowers being tossed at Trump's budget director, Russell Vought. And in the opposite chair, Ilhan Omar, the Progressive Caucus superstar, self-proclaimed truth-teller, and one of the most vocal critics of the Trump administration. And guys, what unfolds here is exactly what you'd expect when ideology meets numbers, when political theatrics collide with economic reality. So buckle up. The clip opens with Ilhan Omar being recognized for her 5 minutes. And if you've ever watched these hearings, you know 5 minutes in Congress is like 5 hours on Twitter, maximum drama compressed into minimum time. She starts with a very simple question, or at least what sounds like one. How much has the national debt increased under Trump's tenure so far? Now this is where the tone shifts immediately. Vought tries to give context. Context, by the way, is the thing politicians avoid like garlic. He says the debt as a percentage of GDP is roughly where it was when Trump came in, but Omar wants a number, just the number. So Vought gives the number. $23 trillion. And right away Omar fires back. So it's increased $3 trillion. Boom. Dramatic pause. Cue the gotcha. Here's the important part the scriptwriters in the Progressive Caucus room won't tell you. The U.S. debt trajectory has been exploding for decades, under both parties. The biggest drivers are mandatory spending, not the discretionary spending Omar blames. Trump's tax cuts actually increased revenue in multiple quarters pre-pandemic. You will never fix the debt by raising taxes alone, not mathematically possible. And yes, progressives voted for giant spending packages that increased the debt too. But this hearing isn't about truth. It's about creating a viral moment. It's about turning budget math into campaign fuel. And this is the part I want people to really think about. What we saw in this exchange wasn't a debate about numbers. It wasn't even a debate about solutions. It was a debate about narratives. Omar wasn't trying to discover the truth. She was building a clip, building a moment, building an argument she could take back to Twitter. And Vought, he was trying to speak the language that DC hates the most, reality. Because the truth is uncomfortable. We're spending too much. We've been spending too much for years. And neither party wants to tell Americans the tough truth, because tough truth doesn't get applause. Instead, we get political theater. Omar got her moment, Vought gave his numbers, and the American people. They got another performance instead of a plan. If you're tired of political theater drowning out real conversation. If you think Americans deserve leaders who care more about solutions than soundbites. Then make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment with your thoughts. Let's keep building a community that actually talks about the real issues, without the spin, without the outrage, and without the political fog machine. See you in the next one. Stay sharp, stay aware, and stay free.